What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to give you all my review of Lost Records Bloom and Rage Tape 2. Go over it. Now, I'm going to try to do this in a spoiler-free fashion. I want to do kind of what I did with Tape 1. I'll give you guys the review. We'll go over things spoiler-free, but still my opinions on it. And then probably tomorrow or the next day, we'll have an entire spoiler cast. Now, I do just really quickly want to thank Don't Nod for the review code. They gave me the entire game. I got in the same day that everybody else got in for Tape 2, along with PS Plus, but they did give me a code. I do appreciate it. And much like with Tape 1, it's not going to stop me from, saying anything about this game. So here's what I'll say, okay? It might be long, but I do think this is probably the most to the point that I can be. Tape 2 improves a lot on the flaws that I found in Tape 1, okay? Now, the flaws that I found in Tape 1 were not ones that maybe other people would have thought. I saw a lot of praise with Tape 1 that I didn't agree with, and I can respect that totally, and that's what I actually find interesting here. Tape 2, I think, did a lot of things right and did things that I think Tape 1 did wrong. It did right. But also at the same time, I think Tape 2 invented its own issues. So, as a whole, I think this game is a fine game. And I've said that a few different times here and there, live streams, other places. I really will stand on this, okay? This is a fine game. This is a fine building, foundation. If they want to build off of this and make a second game, which I think they will, and we'll talk about that in future videos, I think it'll work, okay? I think there's enough here that you can continue and tell some really interesting things. But I really don't think I buy into the idea that Don't Nod is back and better than ever. I will continue to bang the drum that Banisher's Ghost of New Eden is the second best game they've ever made besides Life is Strange 1. So in my mind, in reality, I think they were quote-unquote back last year when they made a Game of the Year contender. This I actually feel like is a downgrade, but I will say it continues a very solid foundation. It continues, okay, they can do this multiple times. Jasant, I think, is a good game. I even would go back to Tell Me Why, say that was a good game. Banishers is an elite game. Lost Records is a solid game. That's kind of what I think of it. And, I'm going to go more into detail, but just in terms of overall thoughts, I think there's more good than bad. I think Tape 2, I do actually prefer Tape 2 over Tape 1, and I think it helped the game, but overall this game is just incredibly uneven. I think that is my overall thoughts. If you combine my reviews for Tape 1 and 2, this is an uneven game. There's actually a lot of this game that is uneven, but when it hits, it really hits. So, okay, be more specific, Alex. Okay, I hear you. When it comes to Tape 2, I'll tell you this. I mentioned this in Tape 1. I don't remember if I said the actual character, so I'll give you guys the spoiler. I thought Kat was actually extremely uneven in Tape 1. I just couldn't even get with the acting at times. I thought, and the acting in general can sometimes bounce between really good and just okay, what was the direction of that scene? Tape 2, I thought she was the best character by miles. Okay, now I generally think, and I think Tape 2 really helped with this, there is a good cast here. I think Swan is a good character. I think Autumn and Nora are good characters. And I think when it all comes together, certain moments of Tape 2, it does hit. It does hit, and you can see where that buildup was. You can also see kind of why it needed to be slow. Now, I still feel like that hurt Tape 1 because I think it was too slow, but that slow buildup of this relationship and this bond between these girls, I think that was in a way needed to then kind of hit us with what Tape 2 is going to deliver. But, just kind of throwing that out as an example, Kat, I thought a very uneven, even acted and written character in Tape 1. She was the freaking star, in my opinion. She was the star of the show in Tape 2. Now, Tape 2 was focused a lot on, okay, you know the ending of Tape 1, so you know where Tape 2 is going. She was always going to kind of be the focus, and maybe that helped her a little bit, but I thought she was a fantastic character. And I think in general, pretty much every character evolved and got better from Tape 1 to Tape 2. I think my closing thoughts on all of them would be higher than it was. Even characters you're not necessarily supposed to like. You think of Corey. Corey's an interesting one, and what the Abyss does to him is an interesting thing. So I can't say I like him, but I think the arc that his character goes down, and just how, I don't want to spoil certain things, but the things that he does in this Tape 2, again, kind of under an influence, let's say, he's scary. He's legitimately scary. Now, I will say, okay, in terms of, okay, well, they add a good, is there any bad that kind of comes with it? I actually kind of think there is, because Corey now all of a sudden became an uneven character. See, Corey was scary, was kind of powerful in that antagonistic way, but I feel like the acting was all over the place. I feel maybe it was like the motion capture or the like the lip work. Like some of the readings were just not there, in my opinion. And they did a lot of camera kind of tricks in tape 2, I think, to kind of symbolize when the abyss was like influencing people, right? So like it would get really close to their eyes, or it would kind of like have the camera almost like shooting up at them, like from underneath their chin. There were some scenes where the camera work I just thought was bad. Like I knew what it was trying to do, but I wasn't a big fan of it. So again, that kind of unevenness, like there's some hugely impactful, I don't even know if that's a word, there's some really big moments, okay? And I think when they wanted them to hit, they did hit. Hard for me to say, like, without going into spoilers, but, there are obviously some key things that happens towards the end of tape 2. And again, I'll give you a good and a bad. The good is what emotion they wanted me to feel when those things happened. Generally, I felt. They have some really amazing scenes in tape 2 where it really slows down, and it just kind of is just a cutscene, a very long, like 2, 3, 4, 5 minute cutscene. There's music playing. The music, by the way, phenomenal. They really, really nailed the music, just really both in tape 1 and tape 2. But there's some very long scenes in this tape where they really let kind of just the atmosphere, just like the visual direction, they just let that kind of take over. So in those moments, it's incredibly good. Like I said, a lot of good scenes. In fact, tape 2, and that's a strength of tape 2, and at the same time, sorry I have to keep doing this, at the same time, maybe slightly a weakness. Tape 2 is kind of the antithesis of tape 1, right? It's faster. It's more to the point, and well, I think actually factually it's a shorter tape, right? A shorter episode just in general. And, again, in parts, that works to this tape's favor. Things are just happening quicker. More impactful things are happening quicker. And so you get to those emotional parts. You get to the payoffs, right? Like where everything is kind of leading to with characters, with arcs, with literally the ending of the freaking game, right? Like you get there, and you get there rather quickly, especially compared to tape 1. But then there's always the but included, right? The pacing of it, I just think, is kind of off, amongst other things. But let's talk kind of about that first. Like things I feel like kind of just jump too quick, or they have a moment to hang on something and they don't, or they actually hang on something too long. I'll give you probably a spoiler-free example here. So there's an entire segment of like breaking into Kat's house, right? And I actually think it's quite clever. It's actually got a little Life is Strange, I think, nod to it. Pretty freaking sweet. You go in, and eventually Swan enters the room with Kat, and it literally starts with her saying, okay, Nora is distracting like your family on the ground floor. We got to get out of here. The game proceeds to keep you locked in that room for like 10 minutes real time, like as you're playing the game. And these two characters are just going on and on. And here's the thing. It's actually impactful. It actually does have some strength to it. There's some stuff that Kat's going through. Again, I don't want to get too into the spoilers, right? But they're talking, and there's like an emotional kind of bond there. All good. But then you think, okay, well, does this really actually make sense? Like, why would they be in this room? You have to go. They're going to open the door at any point. And then guess what? Then they get to the door, and you're kind of trapped. And it's like, okay, it kind of just comes across as stupid, because it's like, we shouldn't be in that situation. And I get it. They're trying to have a moment. They're trying to slow the game down to have these characters bond. But like it makes them both come across like they have no idea what they're doing, right? Because they know that there's a time pressure thing that they got to get out of there. It's a heist. It's a jailbreak thing, right? And yet they're sitting there, and then they're looking around, and they're saying, "Oh well, we should really go." And then they proceed to talk for 5 more minutes. Again, there's some strength to that in terms of what they're trying to do. But kind of how it's framed, I guess, is maybe the best way of saying it, right? The framing of it, I think it's ridiculous. I think it's actually, I was kind of laughing in real life watching it. And I would say, again, in terms of these payoffs, but also there's a little bit of like a withholding thing. When it comes to the abyss, when it comes to the ultimate thing of what happens with characters like Kat and Corey and things like this, a lot of it's expected. The game, you kind of are waiting because you think Don't Nod, you think Life is Strange, all that jazz. You're kind of waiting for the one more thing. And technically there is. Technically, I would say the epilogue of this game is the one more thing that really is kind of like the WTF moment, right? But you're kind of waiting for it throughout the game and saying, okay, are they going to like what I think is going to happen? Are they going to like pull the rug out from under me? And the answer is no. The answer is I predicted the major events in this game like an hour into tape 1. Like, you can kind of, I guess, okay, maybe that's exaggerating a little. Once you kind of find out with Kat, but really once tape 1 starts to ramp up and you see the relationship between Kat and the Abyss, and even Corey and Dylan and all them, you start to realize, okay, I can kind of see where this is going, and it literally goes there. Like, there's absolutely no deviation from what you think is going to happen. Exactly what you think is going to happen to several characters actually happens. And then at the same time, this game does a lot of sequel baiting, and the tough thing here, like, I want to give it to them because I want them to create a franchise. I want them to feel good about creating a franchise, right? But you got to be careful because you have to make a game. You have to make a good base game that you can build off of if you're given the opportunity to. And I think they will. I think they'll be allowed to do, Lost Records too. But, so much of the last, hour, there's so many mysteries. There's so much stuff that they actually just, and I'm okay, not knowing certain things. We don't know a lot about how Max got the time travel powers. We don't know about the storm, just literally generally, right? Like, they kept things kind of under wrap. But I feel like this one's just different. Like, there's even more of a mystery kind of thing and more of like a tease, more of like dangling something in front of you and saying, okay, these are things we're going to address if we're given the option to in a second game. But the issue is you're kind of waiting for that now, right? You're saying, okay, well, in the second game when they explain this is going to feel really good to know. Okay, well, what if there is no second game? Or what if the second game is 2-3 years from now? What about the first game? Like, how does it affect the first game, these decisions? And those are kind of things that stay with me, right? So, again, the impactful moments were impactful. I felt the most emotion I felt in the tapes, in both tape 1 and 2. I felt it here. There's some really, really good moments. Again, I mentioned the music and some of the scenes in general. And I think just generally, it's good. Like, this is definitely a good tape, I keep wanting to call it episode. It's a good episode, but it's very uneven. It does have its weaknesses. It has some just awkward, there's still some awkwardness. I think Kat is a much better character, but like I said, it's kind of been replaced by Corey. Some of the acting, some of the way that the camera works, some of the kind of awkward almost cuts and what these characters are doing. Again, I mentioned, the scene with Kat in their room. There's a couple of those where it's okay, I feel like they're lingering, and maybe it's me being too nitpicky, but just some moments where I'm okay, they're lingering too long, or wow, that happened really abruptly, or you think about them chasing through the woods. I didn't, is there something to Corey that's scary there? Yes, but at the same time, it just kind of feels a little bit awkward. An okay amount of this episode, and that's probably the word, does feel awkward. So this is just a weird game. And I mean, look, at the end of the day, I like weird, and I mean, it kind of gives off the don't nod vibe. So if that's what you're going for, which is what I'm going for, right? That's kind of what I want. That is here. This, in that way, I don't really think it's going to let you down. But, I do think they kind of sacrifice some stuff in their quest for telling certain stories. They wanted to tell, this long, this kind of stretched out, this kind of group bonding type thing, right, between these girls in tape 1. And they did it. And I think they actually did it effectively, which is what I said in tape 1, right? But what do you sacrifice? Well, you sacrifice, I think, there wasn't much more to it than just that in tape 1, right? It was just about the bond, and that's really it. And then if that bond doesn't deliver, then you kind of failed there. Now, I will say, did it deliver? Yeah, it actually kind of did. But also there was a sacrifice, right? There was a little bit too much of just, oh, well, we'll explain this in the next game. Or, yeah, there's still going to be some awkwardness. There's just going to be scenes that are really going to almost kind of bug you, right? There's always kind of, and I think I said this over and over, so you guys are probably annoyed at me at this point. I really feel like I said the exact same thing in tape 1. For every good thing, there's kind of a but. There's kind of okay, there's an opposite to it. And what that leaves you with is, I think this is a solid game. It's on PS Plus. It's also only $40. I think it's a solid game. That's what I give it. I don't do review scores. It's a solid game that has problems. There's room to grow. And this is without going into spoilers. The way the game ends, you can definitely keep going. You can definitely grow this franchise. And I want to see it. I just wish that, I hope eventually, that they kind of pave it, right? Make it a little bit more even, because it was just, for one thing that was good, they kind of made just a weird decision on the other end of things, and that's just how I felt about the entire game. And but again, how I started this video, I'll end it. it's just really interesting. And maybe it's only interesting to me, maybe not you guys, but tape 2 does so many things better than what tape 1 did, but then introduced more shortcomings that tape 1 didn't have. So it's like, dang it, you improved and you actually did some of the stuff I wanted from tape 1 to tape 2, but then you lost something else that I didn't even think you could lose, right? So it's like, man, they had it, but they also didn't have it, and I felt that way through kind of the entire game. So that's kind of where I'm left with. So again, I'm going to do multiple videos on this. Keep it tuned to the channel for all of that, but let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.